Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at some of the top stories in today's newspapers from around the world. And Tundu and Leila, before we begin to look at the newspapers, I would like to suggest that we note the fact, especially, that today is Armed Forces Remembrance Day in Nigeria and in Abuja and various states of the Federation. That Remembrance Day is being celebrated. The ceremonies began long before now, when, as is the tradition, the government will begin to, distribute the Armed Forces Day emblem or the poppycock, and then it all culminates on the ceremony today. Last weekend, there were church services across the country where state governors made a lot of statements. On Friday last week, there was also the Jumat service devoted across the country in remembrance of members of our armed forces. Now, for me, Armed Forces Day is about sacrifice. It's about martyrdom. And it's also about the significant contribution of the armed forces to the security of Nigeria. And it is just as well, perfectly in order, that persons who have paid the supreme price so that other Nigerians can survive and the corporate integrity of Nigeria can be maintained, they deserve to be honored. But the issue, of course, is that we still need to do a lot more for our armed forces. The soldiers are overstretched. I don't think they are equipped enough, even if every year the lion's share of the budget goes to defense. Then there's also the issue about the welfare of the troops. And we've been getting feedback from the war front, particularly in the northeastern corridor, about how troops, are either demoralized or, feel that they are not getting enough. And then, of course, there's also the issue of the legionnaires and pension for, retired armed forces persons, and also the welfare of their families. And I recall that on January 1 this year, President Buhari had devoted a special paragraph to the armed forces, saluting their courage and promising that the government would do a lot more for them. We should be able to see that in action, in reality, in terms of the provision of both software and hardware, welfare, training, logistics for our armed forces, to make them competitive and to make sure that, the emphasis is on modernizing the armed forces and on professionalism and welfare and capacity building.
Absolutely. Very well said, Dr. Abati. For me, if you never really had an appreciation for the military, that recent news that was announced by the federal government that the military is going to withdraw and police will take over, and the kind of panic and fear that greeted it should be a reminder that these brave men and women are the ones in the front line. They're really the only ones standing between us and terrorists and facing unique challenges in today's world where it's no longer just Boko Haram, it's also ISWAP that they're contending with. As you've said, with limited resources, as you've said, with dwindling morale within the core, and they do a job that we all need to really appreciate. I said this last year here, and I'm saying it again. In the UK, by now, every single child, every single professional, market women, whoever it is, would be wearing one of these emblems. From kindergarten to pensioners, you have to have, yes. And it promotes national unity. It promotes a sense of appreciation for the sacrifice these people make. And it's in order. And it also raises funds for important causes relating to the welfare of our troops. And it's absolutely in order. We have that Latin saying, Dulce est just decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and fitting, to die for your country. It is actually not sweet and it is not fitting. Nobody wants that fate. And these men and women are out there laying down their lives. There's some of them with horrible disabilities, and we do need to appreciate them. And we say a big thank you to our military.
Absolutely. Tunde, you said it right. They're the only ones standing in between us and terrorists and insurgency, which has taken so many different forms today. We're living in a world where war is no longer only fought physically. War is fought in so many ways. And our armed forces are here to protect us. And that's exactly what they're doing. And looking back in history, once upon a time, we had an armed force that was so strong that it was called upon some of the strongest battles across Africa. Until today, we still probably, in my opinion, have the strongest armed forces in Africa, but we're so the welfare of our soldiers and the lack of capacity that they have to actually maximize their potential is a huge problem that we're facing, and we have to continue to call for better welfare for our soldiers, for the right provisions for our soldiers, because at the end of the day, they are the bravest men and women that any country can have, and we are so grateful to them for everything that they have done. And I will urge everyone, like you said, to get your emblem today, show your support, and also do that to, like you said, donate money to the right cause.
You know, my most enduring impression of the value of a soldier in society was once, you know, somewhere in the U.S. when a Marine, you know, in uniform, you know, arrived in the waiting lounge, and everybody stood up and they started applauding him.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, see how Americans, you know, appreciate people who make the ultimate sacrifice. Yes. I like to see that day when the average Nigerian sees a soldier, and what comes to his head instinctively is that this is a man who is defending our country and who is ready to lay down his life for our country.
Absolutely.
But in any case, well, as you said, we thank the armed forces, you know, for the great work they've been doing to keep Nigeria one. Now, let's take a look at the papers.
Yes.
As expected, the major stories are more or less the same. The Supreme Court decision. We start with this day. Supreme Court's inexplicable decision gives Imo governor to APC. And then you have that on the front page of most of the other stories. In Vanguard, you have shock waves as Supreme Court sacks Ihedioha in Imo. Then, of course, it's also the front page of the Guardian. How Hope Uzodinma floored Ihedioha at Supreme Court. Then, front page of Tribune. Why Supreme Court declared fourth-placed Uzodinma Imo governor. Ganduje Tambuwal no fate on Monday. Well, it's also on the front page of the Daily Trust. Supreme Court sacks Ihedioha, declares Uzodinma governor. And of course, Daily Trust has a graphics on the Armed Forces Remembrance Day on the front page.
We've lost 12 soldiers already this year alone.
Yes, which is quite unfortunate. And then, of course, The Nation also has Uzodinma replaces Ihedioha in Imo. And if you check all these newspapers, they also have, of course, all of them, the same story that we discussed earlier about the Western Nigeria Security Network, also known as Amotekun.
But I want to ask you a question. We haven't raised it from this perspective yet. Who would have ever thought that you would have an APC governor in the Southeast or the South-South? What does this portend for 2023?
Well, it just shows that 2023 will be even far more competitive than, 2019 election. And then, of course, a lot will depend on what plays out subsequently. It's not just about being declared governor. It's also about your performance. Under Rocha Sokorocha, many stakeholders in Imo State were disappointed because they thought the theatrics, the histrionics, the comedic nature of that administration was not in the best interest of certain stakeholders in Imo State. And then you had Emeka Ihedioha, who was declared after the March 19 election, and he assumed office. And you saw a different kind of momentum, a different kind of pace, style, comportment. Yes. And, many Igbo elders, particularly, and young people, felt relieved that, the Imo State at last will have a turning point. Now, with that background, it means that Hope Uzodinma has a great burden on his shoulders.
It does.
When he gets in there, if he's able to perform, perhaps, the APC will be voted in again in the next election. But if he does not perform, the people of Imo State will then say, well, see what the legal process has done, giving us, this kind of governor. But it's all in the realm of hypothesis, but we hope that Uzodinma will be a governor of hope and achievement in real concrete terms. Yeah. As Father Mbaka, you referred to him earlier, had predicted, but I don't know. There are people who think, it's just sheer coincidence, and that Father Mbaka was making a political statement or whatever.
There just has to be a doubting Thomas in there.
Well, I mean, just it's not good to rely too heavily on futurology.
No, absolutely.
But what's so important here as well as a peaceful transition.
So far, so peaceful.
Yes,
There hasn't been any reports of any violence.
But as I said, the Amotekun story is also on the front page of all the newspapers.
But what I want to know, obviously we're praying for peace because we all live in the Southwest. We have a vested interest in praying for peace. But if there's any other incident like that really tragic one with the daughter of Pa Ruben Fasoroti, anything like that, is the Attorney General prepared to be blamed for that? Because he will be. The finger will be pointed at him.
He's going to, yeah, exactly.
I just don't understand why he felt the need to speak out against this one body and single it out as illegal. It's merely supplementary.
But didn't
it is not a usurpation of the functions of the police. They're not even armed with firearms. They don't, unless they can get a license. They're going to be restricted to Dane guns. So how is that a threat to the police?
I'm just not surprised, though, that he politicized the matter. It was bound to happen. But I am shocked. I am shocked that that's okay with him. I am shocked that he can do that with a conscience when people are dying. We're looking at the front page of the Daily Trust today, showing us that 12 soldiers alone have died in 2020. Let's not even move on to talk about civilians. People are dying all over this country. Lives are being lost, property is being lost, and you come out with a statement like that, then yes, if something is to happen, like a repeat of what happened with Pa Fasoroti's daughter, then at the end of the day, what is going to happen is people, especially people in the Southwest, are going to turn to the AG and hold him accountable.
Well, let's look again at the front page of The Guardian. Still on this Amotekun story. You have this story that says South Middle Belt leaders reject federal government's declaration of Amotekun illegal. Urge Southwest governors to ignore Attorney General. Regions governors will respond appropriately, says Fayemi. Well, so there have been other reactions from the South-South, from the Middle Belt, and also from the South-Western part of the country. But can the governors just ignore the Attorney General?
No, it's not that
easy.
If
they ignore the Attorney General, what will be the consequence? That's why I think that the best option for them will be to go to court to test the relevant sections of the law that the Attorney General has referred to. But also, the federal government must manage this carefully so that it doesn't seem as if this is, a partisan, thing. Because the same government has not declared as illegal the Civilian Joint Task Force in Borno State or the ISBA, in parts of the north. This is the
thing, and it's a part of their own election manifesto. Exactly. This exact sort of operation is included in their manifesto. It makes no sense.